Let's start from number 8 to number 1. Number 8. The moon sound NASA couldn't explain. There is a recording sitting inside NASA's own archive that most people never think to ask about, and once you hear it, you will understand why the men who first captured it went quiet. In May 1969, the crew of Apollo 10 rounded the far side of the moon, out of radio contact with Earth, and their onboard recorder picked up something that should not have been there. A low, warbling, almost musical whistle bled into their headsets. Tom Stafford can be heard on the transcript asking his crewmates if they hear it too. Gene Cernan calls it spooky. Nobody panicked, nobody screamed, but the words on the page are the words of 3 trained test pilots trying to describe a sound they did not have a category for. The tape stayed classified for decades, not because anyone believed it was extraterrestrial, but because NASA does not like handing the public unexplained audio without a tidy explanation attached. The eventual answer was radio interference between the lunar module and command module systems, a kind of electromagnetic echo bouncing in the gap between two machines. That explanation is almost worse than a mystery. It means the eeriness was manufactured by our own hardware, a ghost built entirely out of circuitry, humming into the ears of men who had nowhere to run and no one to call. We built the haunted house and then flew ourselves into it. Number 7. Voyager heard space's loneliest noise. Been gone so long that the sunlight it launched under has been replaced by 4 different American presidencies, and somewhere past the edge of the solar wind's influence, it is still singing. Not literally, because there is no air in interstellar space to carry sound, but its plasma wave instrument, built under physicist Don Gurnett, measures oscillations in charged particles, and NASA converted that data into audio anyway, because someone in a lab decided humanity deserved to hear what the space between stars feels like. The result is a rising and falling moan, closer to whale song filtered through a dying radio than anything you would call music. It is not a voice, it is not a signal, it is the sound of loneliness measured directly, the physical texture of a place with nothing else in it, translated so our ears could process an emptiness too large to otherwise comprehend. I think about this recording the way I think about deep-sea recordings of trench pressure, except worse, because the ocean floor at least has fish. Out there, past the heliopause, there is only the hum, and a 47-year-old machine still faithfully reporting it home like a dog that does not know its owners have long since stopped waiting by the door. Number 6. The 72-second alien signal mystery. On August 15, 1977, an astronomer named Jerry Amon sat down with a stack of printouts from Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Telescope and circled a string of characters in red pen, then wrote a single word in the margin: "Wow." The signal had lasted 72 seconds, matched almost exactly what theorists predicted an artificial extraterrestrial transmission might look like, and then it was gone, never repeated, despite decades of astronomers pointing telescopes at the same patch of sky near the constellation Sagittarius. Nobody has ever proven what it was, nobody has ever proven what it wasn't. That unresolved status is the most unsettling kind of discovery there is, because a solved mystery lets you exhale and a proven hoax lets you laugh. But the wow signal does neither. It just sits there, 72 seconds long, daring you to fill in the silence around it with whatever your imagination is currently capable of producing. Eamon himself remained cautious about it for the rest of his career, refusing to claim proof of alien contact, which somehow makes the whole thing creepier than if he had run around shouting about it. The most careful man in the room heard something he could not explain and simply wrote down his honest reaction. That is rarer than any conspiracy theory. Number 5. Did NASA find fossils from Mars? In 1984, a research team walking the Allen Hills ice field in Antarctica picked up a 4-pound rock that had been blasted off the surface of Mars roughly 17 million years ago and had spent 13,000 years frozen into an ice sheet before anyone noticed it. Meteorite ALH 84001 sat in storage for over a decade before a NASA team led by David McKay published a 1996 paper in the journal Science, proposing that microscopic structures inside the rock resembled fossilized bacteria. The announcement briefly became a genuine geopolitical event, with President Clinton addressing it from the White House lawn. Then the scientific community did what it is supposed to do and tore the claim apart for years, pointing out that the structures were smaller than most known bacteria and could plausibly form through non-biological chemistry. The consensus today leans skeptical, but not fully closed. What lingers is not the fossil claim itself, it's the fact that the rock had been sitting in a museum drawer since the 80s, already carrying its secret, while everyone walked past it assuming it was just another chunk of Martian debris waiting to be cataloged and forgotten. Number 4. The star that defied all science. Kepler, object of interest 8462852, does not sound like a name that should terrify anyone. And then you look at its light curve and your stomach drops anyway. Discovered through NASA's Kepler mission and flagged by astronomer Tabitha Boyajian, working with the Planet Hunters Citizen Science Project, the star dimmed in dips as deep as 22% at irregular intervals, in patterns that did not match any known planet transit. A normal planet blocks a predictable, tiny, rhythmic sliver of light. This star was behaving like something enormous and irregularly shaped kept drifting in front of it. The internet did what the internet does and reached immediately for the phrase alien megastructure, and to Boyajian's credit, she never encouraged that framing, instead publishing careful follow-up studies that eventually pointed toward uneven clouds of orbiting dust as the most likely cause. But here's the part that stays with me. Dust does not explain everything cleanly, and some of the deepest dimming events remain only partially accounted for. Science did its job and mostly closed the case, and there is still a sliver of that light curve that nobody has fully tamed. Number 3. The visitor that came from another star. On October 19, 2017, a telescope in Hawaii called Pan-STARRS, operated under astronomer Robert Werik, caught a point of light moving through the solar system on a trajectory that no object born here could ever follow. It had come from interstellar space, passed through our system, and was already leaving, the first confirmed visitor from outside the solar system that humanity had ever observed. Researchers led by Karen Meech scrambled telescopes across the globe in the narrow window before it vanished for good, and what they found only made things stranger. The object, later named Oumuamua, was unusually elongated, tumbling instead of spinning smoothly, and accelerating slightly faster than gravity alone could explain, a signature usually associated with comets venting gas, except it showed none of the visible tail or coma a comet should have. Every proposed explanation, from a hydrogen iceberg to a nitrogen ice fragment, patches some of the data and strains against the rest. It is already billions of miles away now, tumbling into the dark between stars, and it will never come back, and we will spend the rest of our careers arguing about a rock we only got to watch for a few weeks. Number 2, the signal that fooled scientists. In 2019, the Breakthrough Listen project pointed its instruments toward Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to our sun, and picked up a narrow-band radio signal that researchers Shane Smith and Sophia Sheik later designated BLC1. It had a very specific technical fingerprint, a frequency drift consistent with something moving the way a planet would move relative to Earth, exactly the kind of signature astronomers hope to see from an artificial transmitter rather than a natural cosmic source. For months, the discovery was kept quiet while the team ran it through every filter they had, because getting this wrong publicly would set the search for extraterrestrial intelligence back years. Eventually, the signal was traced most likely to terrestrial radio frequency interference, some earthbound piece of equipment producing a false echo that happened to line up with the exact star everyone most wanted an answer from. I find that detail almost funnier than a genuine detection would have been. Out of every direction in the sky, our own noise chose to impersonate a message from our nearest stellar neighbor, and for a few months, some of the most rigorous scientists on the planet let themselves hope it wasn't us. Number 1. The green fireballs nobody solved. Beginning in December 1948, residents and military personnel across New Mexico started reporting fireballs streaking across the sky with an unusual saturated green color and trajectories that did not match typical meteor behavior. This was already the era of Roswell paranoia and nuclear anxiety, so the sightings triggered enough concern that the Air Force and Los Alamos Laboratory jointly funded an investigation, and astronomer Lincoln LaPaz was brought in specifically because of his expertise cataloging meteorite falls. La Paz studied the trajectories and concluded, cautiously, that several of the fireballs did not behave like natural meteoric material, noting flight paths too flat and too consistent with the local topography of nearby nuclear research facilities to be comfortable coincidence. The military-funded follow-up, known as Project Twinkle, ran cameras and observation posts for 2 years and ultimately closed without a firm conclusion either way. No alien craft was proven, no clean natural explanation was proven either, and the file was quietly closed the way institutional files get closed when nobody wants to write the word unknown in a government report. La Paz, one of the most credentialed meteor scientists in the country, went to his own conclusion, never fully able to file the green fireballs under ordinary sky debris. And that unfinished sentence is still sitting in a drawer at Los Alamos, waiting for someone to reopen it.